Everyone is calling Obsession one of the freshest horror movies of the decade. But while watching it, I couldn't stop noticing how much horror history was hiding inside. I want to take a look at 3 particular scenes, from the disturbing to the downright horrifying, and explore the movies that secretly influenced them. Near the beginning of the movie, we're hit with a little setup. Bear has a crush on Nikki, and he wants to get her something nice as a gift before trivia night. While at this odd occult shop, he finds a one-wish willow. He inevitably ends up using the one-wish willow to wish that his crush Nikki would love him more than anyone else in the whole world.
Why can't you love me?
This leads to Bear's wish backfiring on him in a horrifying way. Now, this whole scene is executed incredibly well, and its use of humor and absurdism makes it feel very fresh.
Oh my god, that's crazy.
What?
No, hold on a second.
But if you're media savvy, you've seen a lot of this before. Love potions, magical wishes, and mad scientists have created these scenarios throughout history. It's tried and true territory, and if you follow the concept far enough, eventually you'll stumble upon the idea of a role reversal. What if the love potion backfires?
Or it does work and it ruins their lives.
Or they die or wish they were dead.
Director Curry Barker himself has frequently listed 2 influences on the screenplay, the first being Treehouse of Horror 2, an episode of The Simpsons, specifically the Monkey's Paw segment. However, like a Russian nesting doll, this episode was obviously influenced by the short horror story of the same name. That same short story influenced British horror films, as well as an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark, released the same year as that Simpsons episode.
The tale of the twisted claw.
The other reference Barker gives is to Stephen King's Misery, which of course shows a sort of obsessive love that is absolutely terrifying. And back to the Russian nesting doll, Stephen King was influenced by the short story The Man Who Liked Dickens, about a man stranded in the Amazon who is forced to read out the works of Charles Dickens. I bring up this nesting doll analogy only because I feel some of the influences on Obsession could ultimately be stylistic references that may ultimately be influences built upon influences, but which are still valid.
I strongly advise you do not purchase this. Behind every wish lurks grave misfortune. I myself was once president of Algeria.
Come on, pal, I don't want to hear your life story. Paw me!
Despite being an almost sitcom-esque convention that is fairly repetitive itself, from Pepe Le Pew...
So glad you...
to Family Matters.
Laura, I don't know if we should really, this might not be a good idea.
Obsession found an easy way to make it horrific. Just treat it like reality. What happens if a person involuntarily becomes infatuated with someone else? And what happens when you view people more as a mountain to conquer, an inevitable object to possess, than as another living, breathing person? Barker also name-dropped newer horror filmmakers like Jordan Peele, Ari Aster, and Zach Cregger, and I can see the modern horror language all over Obsession. The awkward comedy, social commentary, and sudden jolts of violence show this. The Get Out comparison is especially obvious.
Oh, no. 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 No, 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 no.
No.
What?
No, don't do that!
And Indy Navarrete has said Mia Goth's performance in Pearl helped shape her take on Nikki.
What did I do wrong?
Nothing. Calm
No! Why are you leaving me if I didn't do anything wrong? I don't understand. I thought you liked me!
I do like you.
I need you to do something for me.
Why can't you love me?
Stop.
Why don't you love me?
But these references mostly explain the tone and the performance. The look of Obsession feels like it's coming from somewhere else. One of the most talked about moments in the film, and truly one of the key set pieces, would be the sleepover sequence where Bear goes to sleep and awakens to find Nikki standing in the shadow of the room. She speaks eerily.
What are you doing?
Watching you sleep. You're so cute when you sleep.
Her movements are strange and rhythmic. The shadows hide every detail and Bear is unnerved. There is familiarity here, but there's also something unknown. Her labile moods, the sudden and incredibly fast movements she makes, her face being so hidden that she almost becomes unrecognizable. It almost feels like pareidolia, where you see shapes and faces and inanimate objects, but Nikki looks so drastically different when bathed in the shadow. Her movements seem blurred. When she makes her sudden run walk holding the flower vase, before she brings the flowers down, there's a tension in the scene where we honestly don't know what face is going to be hidden behind those flowers. Although it has never been listed by Barker as a reference, the uncanny resemblance of this scene with Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Cairo, aka Pulse, simply cannot be ignored. Even going so far as to duplicate Kurosawa's methods, both men hired dancers for their scenes in order to create strange, rhythmic, and unearthly movements to give their scenes a surreal flair. No other film I'll mention really nails the look of obsession more than this. None use silhouettes or darkness to spread fear quite like Pulse and Obsession do. In Kurosawa's film, characters fade from existence as they are absorbed into the ether, while the world is completely destroyed by a lack of emotional connection. Obsession instead positions Nikki in the shadows in the same exact way. I don't think this is about humanity disappearing as much as it is about identity. Who is this hiding in the shadows? It sounds like Nikki. From a distance, the sparse light, what we see makes it seem like Nikki, but who is it really? The look of Obsession is muted, almost green in its texture, reminiscent of maybe The Social Network, but not so clinical and sterile, which makes me think something else for Obsession's inspiration. We've talked a lot about Pulse so far, and honestly, if you were a film fan in the early 2000s, you know that J-horror was all the rage. It had a very unique look, muted, low lighting, depressed exposure, urban environments, and tension that is wrought from nothingness. Within Obsession, I see so much of films like The Grudge, Ringu, Kakashi, Cure, and of course the collected works of Kiyoshi Kurosawa and Hideo Nakata. Aside from Pulse, I do not know how big of an influence J-horror had on Barker, but whether or not it was intended, his film looks as if it could have fit right in during the early 2000s. The last scene I'll talk about, and my favorite scene in the film, is probably the most unhinged. In it, the protagonist, Bear, calls the phone number on the back of the One Wish Willow. What happens is the most unsettling discussion of a supernatural device you've ever heard. During this scene, there's a brief snippet where the mystery man on the other end of the phone knows Nikki's name without ever being told. He asks Bear if he would like to talk to her.
Do you want to talk to her?
She can then be heard immediately screaming out.
You want to talk to her?
Who is that?
Nikki.
She screams in anguish. There have been a couple of reads on this. One read, a very concrete way of looking at the film, is that the man on the other end actually does some form of call forwarding and turns this into a three-way phone conversation.
Who is that?
Nikki. Do you want to talk to her?
I don't buy that. Moments later, Bear enters his apartment to find a disheveled Nikki, and she is not screaming. She's still waiting. Do her legs hurt? Undoubtedly. She's been standing all day waiting for Bear, but is this enough to cause those tormented screams that she conveniently stopped before Bear made it to his front door? I suspect the Nikki we hear over the phone is the same one who sleep talks to Bear in another scene.
Just kill me.
The true Nikki, the one not forced to love him. Why do I bring this up? Because the absolutely bonkers nature of this scene reminds me of one man. That's right, if you're talking surreal cinema, you're talking David fucking Lynch. In Lost Highway, we are treated to an equally bizarre scene featuring a telephone. A mystery man played by Robert Blake approaches the protagonist and states that they've met before.
We've met before, haven't we?
Bill Pullman tells him he's mistaken.
I don't think so.
But the mystery man is sure that they met at his house. He actually tells him,
As a matter of fact, I'm there right now.
He proceeds to prove it to him with a phone call, and sure enough, the mystery man picks up on the other end.
I told you I was here. How'd you do that?
These scenes are tied together less for plot and more for their dream logic. The terror of one party having all the answers.
Who are you?
Fear of being lost in a world you don't understand. Lynch, despite never making a blatant horror film, almost always dabbled in the genre. The diner scene from Mulholland Drive is another excellent example of his horror, and maybe his best known, but Lost Highway has always stood out to me. Were all of these scenes consciously going through Curry Barker's mind while creating Obsession? Probably not, but I think it goes to show that even creative geniuses are part of a larger tapestry of film history. So, what influences did I miss? Let me know in the comments. I know someone out there is yelling at me for not talking about Fatal Attraction.
I'm not going to be ignored, Dan.
While commenting about that, also let me know what horror movie you want me to analyze next.